In the soft hush of the ancient Mediterranean night, long before the world learned to rush, there stood a city shaped by salt air and ambition, where waves brushed the harbor stones and scholars whispered ideas as gently as prayers. And within this city, Alexandria, there existed a place that was never meant to burn in a single moment, never meant to vanish in a scream of flames, but instead to fade slowly, quietly, almost politely, like a candle left unattended in a distant room. And this place was the great Library of Alexandria, a name that echoes today not because we know exactly what it contained, but because we feel deep within our collective memory that something irreplaceable slipped through human fingers there, something vast and delicate, something we were not yet wise enough to protect, for the Library of Alexandria was not simply a building filled with scrolls. It was an idea, a bold and fragile dream born in the early years of the Hellenistic world, when Alexander the Great had already passed into legend and his empire had fractured into competing kingdoms. And one of those kingdoms, ruled by the Ptolemies in Egypt, sought power not only through armies and gold, but through knowledge itself. And so they imagined a place where every book ever written could be gathered, copied, studied, and preserved, a universal archive of the human mind. And to achieve this impossible goal, they turned Alexandria into a magnet for thinkers, mathematicians, astronomers, physicians, poets, engineers, and philosophers, inviting them with promises of food, housing, and freedom from taxes, allowing them to live only for thought, and within the walls of the Mausean, a sacred institution devoted to the muses. The library grew like a living organism, expanding shelf by shelf, scroll by scroll, fed by ships that arrived in the harbor and were searched not for weapons, but for books, every text confiscated, copied, and sometimes never returned, while the copy was sent back instead, stamped with the quiet authority of Alexandria. And so the library filled with works from Egypt, Greece, Persia, India, and beyond. Texts on geometry and medicine, star charts and mechanical devices, plays and epics, histories and myths. And among these scrolled scholars calculated the circumference of the earth with astonishing accuracy, proposed that the planet revolved around the sun centuries before such ideas would be tolerated augur, and mapped the known world, dissected the human body, debated the nature of the soul, and quietly pushed civilization forward in ways we can now only guess at. Because the tragedy of the Library of Alexandria is not that it burned, but that it disappeared piece by piece. Its destruction stretched across centuries rather than a single night. Eroded by human fear, politics, neglect, and changing values. And the first one often blamed is Julius Caesar's fire in 48 BC, when flames spread through the harbor during a military conflict, possibly damaging a storage library nearby. But even if some scrolls were lost, then the main institution endured, weakened perhaps, but alive, breathing still, and yet the world around it was changing. Rome replaced Greece, emperors replaced philosophers, and funding shifted from inquiry to control, and over time scholars were dismissed, stipends vanished, and silence crept into halls. Once alive with debate, and later, religious tensions sharpened like knives. As pagan traditions clashed with rising Christian authority, and knowledge once celebrated became suspect, dangerous, heretical, and when the Serapeum, a daughter library linked to the original, was destroyed in the late 1st century, it was not just stone that fell, but a worldview one that valued questions more than answers. And by the time later Arab conquerors entered Alexandria centuries afterward, the great library was already a ghost, its shelves empty, its spirit long extinguished. And yet what haunts us is not simply what was lost physically, but what was lost in potential. The roads not taken, the discoveries delayed by 1,000 years, the ideas buried before they could mature. Because among those scrolls may have existed detailed machines, early steam devices, advanced medical knowledge, complete histories of vanished civilizations, and works by thinkers whose names we will never know. Voices silenced not by fire, but by forgetting. And this is the darkest truth behind the Library of Alexandria, that humanity did not lose its knowledge in a dramatic catastrophe, but through indifference, through choosing power over curiosity, certainty over doubt. And as you lie here now, listening in the quiet, allowing sleep to approach like a gentle tide, remember that knowledge is fragile, far more fragile than stone or flame, and that every generation is a library, carrying stories forward or letting them slip away. And somewhere in the soft darkness of history, the Library of Alexandria still whispers, not in words we can read, but in the silence of what might have been,